Gargoyles! Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Plane, taking a round of comic chat, and we'll get right into it with Star Wars Yoda issue 10. And yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing. So anyway, let's get into it. So our story starts off with a flashback on the planet Turek a long time ago, where Yoda's learning to play the musical instrument, and that all goes to pot with the arrival of the Death Star, and as Yoda's getting ready to fight the Death Star, we see a young Anakin Skywalker who says, like, you're just playing with your little toys. Then he's met by Qui-Gon Jinn, who says, like, what were you thinking, Master? Did you not notice? Did you not care? Was it all a game? And the Death Star fires, and Yoda wakes up having this is all a terrible nightmare, and clearly something is going on. Something's going on with Yoda, and the fact that as the Force goes of Obi-Wan Kenobi comes up and says, like, something seems to be wrong, and Yoda doesn't want to deal with it. Yoda sort of evades it and points out, hey, there's the cave, we'll go into the cave. Same cave that Luke Skywalker goes in Empire Strikes Back. So he goes in the cave, and he's met by a dark apparition who says, why didn't you stop me, Master? When you had the chance, I tried to tell you, tried to make you see. I tried to find my way back. I even offered you my saber, but you wouldn't listen. Once a Jedi, always a Jedi. And then we see the dead body of Yaddle, and Yoda's like, was it you who killed her? And he's like, the first of many. And he says, why? And it turns out, in case you haven't figured out, if you didn't watch Tales of the Jedi, you kind of weren't missing something. It's its own thing. And Dooku says, it's Count Dooku says, because you let me. And then he's met by Keeve Trennis from the High Republic era. He says, like, hey, I need your help. And she's like, I needed your help, and you left me. Where were you? And Yoda's like, no, that wasn't what happened. You made your own choice, and I respected it. So, it just sort of falls apart. Then he's met by, as he falls into a pit of skulls, he's grabbed by Bail Organa, Padme, Mace Windu, like, hey, where were you? You were the master. You were supposed to teach us. Where were you? And he's like, I didn't know. I couldn't know. And then Palpatine shows up and calls him, like, hey, you are my greatest apprentice, the Master Jedi. Blind, the unaware. There's no way back. And it's sort of the idea that Yoda does blame himself for all this, but it's sort of stupid. But anyway, let's just focus on the story. So as Yoda's falling down into it all, he hears the music, and he's brought back to Turek with, I don't even care who he is anymore. He's like, hey, it's alright. Failure is our best teacher. Like, it's alright if you don't get it right now, you get it later. Also, still surrounded by all those skulls. And Yoda remembers, it gives him the strength to fight off these apparitions. And yeah, so Yoda's like, hey, I'm ready. Go find Skywalker. This is Empire Strikes Back. We're in Empire Strikes Back. And Kenobi mentions, like, oh yeah, Hoth is a foreboding plan. I don't know why he's down there. Goes to get him and says, like, hey, when he gets here, I'll be ready to teach, and I'll be ready to learn. And that's how the comic ends. So, here's the thing. The greatest teacher failure is. This is us once again trying to reinforce The Last Jedi. And you know what? Whatever, okay? My problem with this is, in itself, it would make sense. But I don't think this resolution should be happening like just before Luke is supposed to arrive on Hoth. I mean, on Dagobah. Like, why couldn't we just have done this, like, in Yoda's first couple of years on Dagobah, when that would have made more sense? It says you have to tie it that close together. I get why, because you want the Force Ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi there. And Obi-Wan doesn't become a Force Ghost until the end of A New Hope. So, yeah, I get that. But was Obi-Wan even needed here? I mean, think about it here. Obi-Wan is sort of this ghost trying to get Yoda to sort of, come out of it, but couldn't we have done the same thing with Qui-Gon? Could Qui-Gon have done it? It's just that voice, And this whole thing that it's all Yoda's fault, that Yoda didn't see, I think we can all agree that, what the Last Jedi was saying, like, At the height of their power, they're a Sith Lord. Take over the galaxy. Well, they didn't let him. They didn't let him. Like, he was a Jedi Master who trained Darth Vader. I'm like, well, not Darth Vader. It was a Jedi Master who trained the boy who would become Darth Vader. Like, this isn't Anakin Skywalker was minding his own business, and then the Jedi just showed up. No, there was a whole story here. A bunch of things that were pulling at both sides that led to Anakin making his own choices that led him to becoming Darth Vader. Alright? Anakin's fall is primarily his own fault, his own doing. That does not mean, however, that other people didn't play a role in him making those decisions. The Jedi did fail him. Okay, Padme did, in essence, fail him. Obi-Wan failed him. The only person who didn't fail him was Palpatine, because Palpatine had no intention of really helping Anakin at all. So, yeah, that was it. So for Yoda to take all this time to learn a lesson that he should have learned maybe within his first couple of years is kind of ridiculous. Even more so, where I get the idea that Yoda says, like, ultimately this failure was mine because I was the Grand Master. I was the one who was the face of the Jedi Order. It was my wisdom that led to this. But at the same time, like, if you read Star Wars, and I hate to play that sort of, like, family, like, if you read the book, it's like, well, look, when the canon attempts to explain something and you don't read it, at that point, you then can't make that statement that, hey, they didn't do it. Like, no, there's a story about them doing it. Like, the Jedi had their problems. The Sith, while hiding, capitalized on those problems. That's kind of it. And then new canon goes into stuff like the High Republic, where Yoda was, like, was in this era where, the Jedi were super liberal and, getting laid and, like, had all these way stations around. And I don't think we've ever found out what happened to them. But apparently, when Yoda became Grand Master, he was like, well, you know what? Shut it all down. Shut it all down. Ain't no one getting laid in this order anymore, alright? If you want to get laid, can't do it here. There's only one way to view the Force, alright? It's the light. Alright, that whole music thing, yeah, get out of here. You enjoy fighting? Get out of here. Alright? That's it. I don't quite get how new canon wants to handle Yoda. It is sort of the way that Star Wars wants to have its cake and eat it too. Like, it wants to have canon do what it wants, what they want it to do. And there is some truth to how you do that. But the problem is, the canon is also in its own way alive. Like, you can't change so many things in canon. Like, the person in the Vader costume is Anakin Skywalker, or was Anakin Skywalker, or will come back to being Anakin Skywalker. Padme died in childbirth, alright? It's, certain things have to happen, alright? And the big thing, the small things, when you're crafting this sort of big story, you have to honor that. I think at this point, I'm just sort of rambling on other issues I have with Star Wars. Let's focus on this book. Back to it. So, really, I think the smaller stories were great. Yoda's little vacation, I felt that was great. The whole mission with Anakin, that was fine. The story of Yoda and the crazy Wookiee Jedi, or the Wookiee Padawan with Dooku, I think that was decent. I think we should have had more with Dooku and Yoda being involved. Like, this may have been like their first sort of quote-unquote disagreement that sort of played the role of Dooku leaving the Order, as opposed to Dooku having apparently already left the Order. So, I don't quite know, like... And then coming to this whole thing where we're trying to reinforce Last Jedi, where Yoda's like, I came here to die, because the galaxy is better off without me. It doesn't justify Luke at all. Because where we can say Yoda played a role in the events that led to Darth Vader and the Empire, Luke contemplated killing his nephew in his sleep. Like, if the lightsaber didn't come on, it wouldn't be a problem. But I get it. He looked into it and saw this great darkness, and he reflexed, okay? Sure. And then Ben Solo or Snoke attack the temple, or apparently Luke can't figure out who did it. He just assumes it's Ben, and then, due to his shame, he hides out and doesn't tell anybody what happened. Or he doesn't tell Leia what happened to her son, doesn't tell Han what happened to her son. She's just left to think, well, Snoke got to him. Alright, so my question is, when did Leia and Han find out about Snoke? Alright, I don't quite get how this story... Whatever. But anyway, instead of dealing with his actual act, alright? His failing, he buries his head in the sand and says, this is the Jedi's fault, alright? The Jedi and their hubris. Like, no, this is on you. And instead of trying to fix it, you decide to hide out here and blame everybody else. Alright? this is where the character assassination of Luke Skywalker begins. And this comic is attempting to sort of explain it all. Well, Yoda felt that way, so it's alright. Yoda did not look over Dooku and say, I'm gonna have to kill this bitch. No, he didn't. He didn't contemplate that, alright? He didn't look at Anakin and go, I might have to kill this boy. The only time you said that Anakin's got to go was when Anakin already slaughtered a room full of children, alright? And at that point, Yoda's like, look, this is on you, Kenobi. You go deal with this mess, alright? I'm gonna go deal with this palpy dude, alright? And go from there. So in other words, this comic was alright until it tried to segue into the sequel trilogy, like everything else in Disney Star Wars. And this stuff just sucks. Alright, now that I've complained about that for the umpteenth time, let's go to something with a bit more panache, a bit of style, a bit of flair. Gargoyles issue 8. Alright, there we go. Greg Weisman does not miss. If for no other reason than because I haven't watched Young Justice, so I don't know if he has missed. So anyway. So, we all know the story of Gargoyles going on here. Alright, Goliath has been arrested for under accusations of attacking someone during the police raid, and the judge is trying to figure out whether or not Goliath is qualified to stand trial, whether or not he's capable of sentience, if he should be entitled to rights like due process. At the same time, Dino Dracon, Tony Dracon's uncle, has been released from prison, and he is going to raise all hell, which he has. He's already started creating tension between other rival gangs. So yeah, this is going on. We interrupted the story for Demona letting us know that she's getting ready to make a move, and I love that. But anyway, so we come up here, and this time our narrator is the gargoyle Cold Fire. So Cold Fire, for those of you that don't know, is one of two gargoyles who through the powers of science and sorcery, so techno magic, before I think we didn't have a term for it by the time Gargoyles came out. We may have, but anyway. So they existed along with another gargoyle who I think it was a Cold Steel. Yeah, Cold Steel, and they waged war in the body they had, who was called Coldstone. And eventually, during the last season Greg Weisman worked on, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was, through the help of Owen, Xanatos, Puck, and Alex Jr. Love it. Was it Alex? Yeah, Alex. They got a new body for the gargoyle known as Coldstone and Cold Steel, and Coldstone and Cold Fire went to hunt Cold Steel. Alright, then it came back and they joined the clan. So anyway, she's contemplating her life now, as well as the current status, which is, Goliath being in jail. And the question is, like, Coldstone does not trust humans. And Cold Fire, who's always been, like, super dedicated to Goliath. Like, you don't have to trust them, you have to trust Goliath and his judgment. Which I love. Like, I think in a lesser story we'd have found out that she had feelings for Goliath. I'm like, oh, look, I love Goliath as much as everybody else, but everyone doesn't have to be in love with Goliath. Alright? So anyway, Goliath's current tenure in prison is not that great. Every time he wakes up, the guard shocks him. Alright? Now, to be fair, I can understand the first day, because, the first time you see a gargoyle come out of the stone, because they don't just do it with subtlety. They have to like, force their way out. There's a roar, the eyes glow, and so yeah, the first night, sure, but he just keeps shocking him for the lulz. So this is all interrupted when the Pack attacks. Now the Pack is one of the oldest enemies in Gargoyles, if you don't know. That means you haven't watched Gargoyles. You're doing culture wrong, alright? Best way to say it. Alright, so anyway, the three most problematic members of the Pack are Jackal, Hyena, alright? The two normal-looking ones on left and right. They're the craziest ones. And Wolf, voiced by Clancy Brown. Alright, Lex Luthor, Mr. Krabs. That's just great. Helps me just care about him less when I think that's Mr. Krabs' voice coming out of there. But anyway, They're here clearly to mess up Goliath, or as we'll find out, they're here to do something else. Meanwhile, we cut back to Slaughter Films, where the gang that was attacked sort of goes over what's happening. They're like, all right, so Gargoyles came in here and saved us? Yeah, weird. I don't get it. Like, these Cybots attacked, the Gargoyles came in, like, this is wild. They fought it off. All right, so something else is going on here. And the leader's like, you know what? I think we're supposed to think that it was someone else. All right, maybe it was Choi's or Sanchez's goons, but I think something else is going on here. So he's the one like, you know what? Something's rotten in the city of Denmark. All right, and we do know for a fact that Dino has been trying to facilitate these gang wars so that way his gang can come in and wipe them all out. Or at least just let them fight and then pick up on the strays. So we get more of Cold Fire talking about pretty much what I just talked about. So I don't know why I bothered to talk about that and keep this clip here. I think because I do love every full page panel that has been in this book. It's just really great. It's a great refresher course, especially for Brooklyn, because we didn't know any of that stuff about Brooklyn. I didn't get a chance to read those old Gargoyles comics. Release them. All right, Dark Horse, put them out again. You know, recirculate them, get some money. But then again, Dynamite owns Gargoyles now, so I don't know. Dark Horse might not. So anyway, we come in, we go back to the prison, and you know the guard's like, hey, we need help. Turns out this has been planned out. They're not just attacking randomly. Something else is going on here, but also they're here to kill. Their real target here is Thomas Broad. I'm like, all right, okay. And turns out they've been hired by Dino, and Dino said, hey Dominic, you can be collateral. He said, if we want you to be collateral, we can be collateral, and even the guard can be collateral. So when the guard's been slapped down because Jazz was like, hyena, not now, not business first. Goliath said, look, I can save you all, but you gotta release my restraints here. And the guard's like, I don't know, might get in trouble. Also, he doesn't trust Goliath. He doesn't know Goliath. All he sees is this monster, all right, this gargoyle, and he has to make that choice. So anyway, Brooklyn comes down to visit Ramirez and Sanchez's kids, and they're trying to figure out what's going on here. And Brooklyn's even suggested, hey, maybe even that whole you saving that drowning kid was a ruse too, and they say it wasn't. So I'm trying to figure out the time frame here, because these two have been dating for at least almost a year, at least. Like, I'm never quite sure how the time frame works, because most of Gargoyles takes place at night, and I don't think we ever see the season really change. But we know Halloween happened, and Halloween would happen going to Christmas, so it's been roughly a year, maybe a year and a half. I'd have to watch Gargoyles again, which isn't a crime, but I'd be listening for timestamps, and it just sort of ruins the whole thing. But anyway. So when they all get back to base, Brooklyn is not happy that Broadway and Lexington went off somewhere, and because he gave them direct orders to stay at the castle and protect it. All right, as well as they were on lockdown, and they said, hey, we left to save a life. All right, and Brooks like, I get that, but you wouldn't have done that if Goliath had been in charge. And they Broadway look at each other like, you know what? Goliath would trust his warriors to follow their guts, and you know, and who has bigger gut than me? Like, you know. And I think that's an interesting thing too, that Brooklyn is still trying to figure out what kind of leader he is, and playing the Goliath card didn't work, because I think the problem is Brooklyn has his sort of mindset on, and then as much as they do follow Brooklyn, you know, Goliath is still their leader at the core, even when Goliath's not there. And there's always, well, what would Goliath do? What would Goliath do? Well, Goliath would have told, if Goliath gave them a direct order, they still would have disobeyed it. And Goliath would have been like, why'd you do it? All right, so next, Goliath would have been like, okay, I get it, that's great, but next time, you need to let us know. All right? Because maybe Goliath would be like, okay, fine, we'll go, because Goliath would not have been a fan of just two of them going off by themselves, especially in unknown territory. Goliath would have done what I think would be his standard. All right? So it would be Broadway, Brooklyn, Broadway, and Lexington. I think I said Broadway twice. Hudson, Bronx, and maybe Cold Fire and Cold Stone would stand guard the castle. All right? they've got the numbers that they can sort of do that. That seems to be very much in line with how Goliath operates. And we've got a comic about how Goliath operates coming up. But anyway. So, the guard finds, like, you know what, fine. He frees Goliath. Goliath gives them the business. Look, the pack together, full force of the pack, can be a threat to Goliath. But what, 3 of them? No. First of all, Jackal and the Hyena are, that, like, as good as they are, they still lack discipline and focus. Alright, Goliath is nothing if not disciplined and focused. So he takes out Jackal. He takes out Hyena. It's all just another day at the wood. No, took him out behind the woodshed. And it's great. It's great. Wolf is done. And everything. And so, after he gives them all the business, the old razzle dazzle, the guard asks, so you're going to escape now? And Goliath said, look, if I desired to escape, I would have left earlier. And, like, you're going to go to trial. And, like, it's a hearing, not a trial, but still. They both, everyone points out that Goliath might not get a fair trial. In fact, the risk is greater than anything else. Like, if Goliath stays, there's a very small chance he'll get a fair trial. There's a very fair chance. There's a very low chance he'll be able to get out of this. Alright? This is his chance, where he has every reason, every advantage to go off. And Goliath doesn't really say why he's doing it. He's just like, you know what? Help me get these 3 into a cell, and then I'll return to mine. And that's how the comic ends. Ultimately, this story is, I think, Justice for All. I think I've said it before. This is, I think, the Greg Wiseman approach to the story, Justice for All. And I do love it. I do love it because we see so many other pieces going on here. Like, it's not just about Goliath. It's about how the other gargoyles react to it, how they feel about it. We see these other things going on. Broadway and Angela getting ready to move on. Lexington has, I guess, a boyfriend who we're not quite sure is a gargoyle or a human. Or whatever. Might not even be. Might be neither. Might be an AI. Who knows? All right. So that's been fun. We see the sort of civil war going on in the criminal underground, which, you know, same thing with Ninja Turtles. I always like the street level stuff for gargoyles. Granted, I do love their magic. I do love Puck and Oberon, but I've always loved the sort of street level stuff they have to deal with. I think it always makes it feel a bit more grounded, a bit more tethered to reality. And Goliath deciding to stay is such his character, and we're seeing that even with him just slightly out of reach, the Manhattan Clan doesn't know how to function. And this could be a tribute to Goliath's failing, that he hasn't properly, you know, helped Brooklyn, you know, adjust to that as well as everyone else. But at the same time, Brooklyn has spent time on his own, and he can't quite seem to figure out how he wants to do it. Even Broadway, when Broadway asks Lexus to be his second at his ceremony to Angela, he didn't feel like that would be something Brooklyn would want to do. And maybe Brooklyn would want to do it, or maybe he wouldn't, because Brooklyn did have a thing for Angela for a while. But Brooklyn's also happily, you know, committed to someone else. They have a child, so I don't quite get that, but whatever. And now, it's time for the 3rd book. This was a book I actually put on hold. I was like, you know what? This issue's so good. I want to review another book with it, alright? And I wanted another book. There was another book, but then I found out Star Wars, the Yoda book was coming to an end. Thank heavens. Alright, so I was like, you know what? We're in. So, anyway. The final one. The pièce de résistance. The crème de la crème. Alright? Gargoyles Dark Ages issue 1. Alright, so what is this? This is Gargoyles before Gargoyles, alright? So before the whole stuff at Castle Wyvern, before that horrible night, before 1,000 years ago, when superstition and the sword ruled, before that time of darkness, before that world of fear, before that age of gargoyles. There was a time of darkness, there was a world of fear, there was an age of gargoyles. This is why I don't have any. This is why I can't grow subscribers. Anyway, so this story here, as I said, is Gargoyles before it happened, before the massacre at Castle Wyvern. So anyway, the story starts off with Hudson, remembering the year 971, All right. So if I'm not mistaken, Gargoyles, the last time we saw it, it takes place in 975. This is 4 years before it all begins, and the gargoyle that will become to be known as Hudson is approached by humans. All right, humans. All right. So okay. So what you guys want? What you guys want? So the art here is sort of hit and miss for me. I think it's great in some places, weird in some other places. But anyway. One of the humans identifies himself as like, hey, I'm Robert. He grew up in a village, like, in a village down at the beach, where his daughters still live with their grandmother. And this guy here is Malcolm, and he's so there's some succession issues, and we would like to we'd like your help to fight them off. And Robert mentions that he grew up with the Gargoyles. He knows about them. He knows the importance of them. That his village has always had this understanding of the Gargoyles. That you don't mess with us, we don't mess with you. And the sort of agreement that's coming up here is, hey, this new king is coming up here. All right, King Cullen. He's coming up here, and he wants to declare himself as king. Because Cullen had their other brother assassinated and assumed the throne. Now, his other brother, Kenneth, seeks to seek it from the king. And the gargoyle formerly known as Hudson says Kenneth, Cullen, Malcolm, Duff. They're like these blasted names. Because remember, gargoyles do not use names. They don't. Which is sort of weird. I don't know any culture that doesn't use names to help separate one person from another. Maybe it's because individualism might not be as important to gargoyles. Like, they are all one and the same. So names just sort of help create that problem. It reminds me of, when I was in high school, I took theater, and big surprise, I took theater, I know. I took all 4 years, I took theater. But I had one of my classmates, she talked about how if she would ever be in charge of a play, no one would have a name. All right, they would just wear shirts that would designate their role. Like, you've got your director, your actor, your stagehand, your lighting director, actor 1, actor 2, actor 3, and go from there. But I don't know. Maybe that worked, maybe that didn't. But anyway. So, the question coming up now is, and look, I guess it's Lexington, Broadway, and Brooklyn, or the Gargoyles that will later be known as Lexington, Brooklyn, Broadway. But anyway, so they are trying to get help here for this, and not Hudson says, like, I don't quite see what's going on here. I don't quite see why I should care. And Robert points out, like, hey, trust not in them, but in our deeds, in our history together. My people, the village, the respect for its clan, and its as protectors. Like, hey, you protected us, and we never violated the daylight sanctity. In other words, we don't mess with you during the day. But there's no guarantee that dude there, who is willing to take power by any means necessary, won't get you during the day. All right, so let's go with this sort of mutual agreement. And so they ask for, like, give us an hour, and we'll talk. And what's cool here is not Hudson talks to his mate. And I want you to notice something cool. The Goliath, not Goliath, is right there. I know, not Goliath. You know what, you're gonna call them by the names. All right, Goliath is there over here in the conversation, and we see he overhears, in my experience, my love, human problems become gargoyle problems, often and rapidly. And Hudson takes it under advisement, and another gargoyle speaks up like, it is, but make no mistake, they're asking us to join in battle, which will bring casualties and not just theirs. And the question is, should we risk the lives of our fellow clan for them? Hudson makes a decision. Yeah, we will. All right, we'll make that alliance. And look, you'll see Demona right there. I think my problem with his art, they all look like they should be bigger. They look like chess pieces, and that isn't bad, but whatever. So they agree, like, hey, we got the alliance, we're in. We see who I think that, I don't know who that kid is. I don't know who, especially with the time frame. But anyway, Hudson goes down to the rookery, and he sees the eggs, and this female gargoyle is Hudson's mate. So in the old comics, if I'm not mistaken, um, it is revealed that Hudson and this female gargoyle are Broadway's biological parents. So that is cool. But anyway, Hudson is doubting whether or not he's made the right decision. He hopes he's made the right decision. And there's also the sort of talk about the gargoyle eggs not hatching. So there's something about that too, or at least they haven't hatched yet. I'm not sure if this story is implying that something's wrong with the eggs, or if it's just taking longer than usual and they're just nervous. So they have this really great tender moment with each other where, she comforts Hudson and tells him, hey, him choosing her as his mate was one of the best decisions. And she's like, oh, you made that decision. It's really sweet, really tender. I love it because inside of Hudson, you don't normally see. Hudson's never someone who likes to be vulnerable. And it's part of his charm. Like when he was him coming to terms with his illiteracy, that was always a problem. His temporary blindness was a problem for him. He doesn't like to talk to people about that. Only people who have seen him at that point will he talk to. He won't even talk to Goliath about it. It takes a lot, and Goliath and Hudson have a father-son relationship as well as a mentor-mentee relationship. My favorite thing was in Vows. One of my favorite moments is when Goliath reveals that he calls Hudson used to call Hudson his mentor instead of his name, like, my mentor. But anyway, we cut to the day of the battle, and everyone's trying to figure out a plan. Hudson's like, look, guys, I get it. This is a regular plan for regular troops, but you don't have regular troops. You got us, so let's use us, all right? So we go in to the plan, and the younger gargoyles like Demona, she's like, hey, why are we being left out of the fight? And Hudson like, because I said it, all right? And we see this sort of I guess this generational gap between this gargoyle and presumably Demona and Hudson. And so we see this sort of stretch out, and she goes off like, fine. Demona goes after her, and Goliath, being Goliath, is like, you know what? I do not question your decision, but I seek to understand it. Because Goliath is that guy. We are warriors, trained and ready. Would we not be of use in the coming conflict? Hudson goes, of course, but if the night goes badly, I need warriors, trained and ready, still alive to protect the home and eggs. And Goliath goes, yes, I see. And that has been Goliath's M.O. for so long. He's always like, hey, let's go, but you guys stay here to protect the home, all right? You never commit too much. Never overcommit to the pocket. Because if it all goes to pot, the next generation has to be kept safe, all right? As long as one or two of us survive, the clan survives, all right? Love it. And this resonates with Goliath. Everything here resonates with Goliath. But anyway, we coming in, the battle begins, and it's the day, and like, yeah, we got this, man. We got this. And it goes on and on until the night comes in, and the gargoyles awaken. And the battle goes on, and everyone seems to be good, but then the female gargoyle and Demona go off, and Goliath's like, oh, this girl. And that's how the comic ends. Ultimately, Gargoyles Dark Ages was, to me, a project I never thought of doing. Like whenever I think of other Gargoyle stories I'd like to see, I wouldn't mind an annual anthology just about what the other Gargoyle clans are doing. Like, we don't need like full multi-issue stories, but like, hey, in this annual we're going to see the Gargoyles in South America, in Guatemala, in Japan, like, going from there, seeing what's going on Avalon. Like, is the Magus a ghost? That'd be so cool. Ghost Magus going on here. Oh, poor Magus. Griff and King Arthur are still traveling. They're going to find Merlin. Like, let's do that. And there's the Olympus one with not Proteus, the Descendant of the Minotaur. That was so messed up. Go with that one. Go with that, or just getting more stories in the Labyrinth. Like, the world of Gargoyles is so vast that an annual alone could have none of our main cast of Gargoyles. And we'd still be like, oh my god, this is so good. Oberon. What if Oberon became friends with Halcyon Renard? just to complain about it. Just to complain about Titania. It's like she never listens. I know, man. She just does whatever she wants, and you know, like that'd be great. But overall, I like this. The one problem I had wasn't really the art because it's still good. This cover is amazing. I love the choice of Demona for the cover of this. Just sort of dark age, sort of primitive, time of darkness, world of fear. You know, Demona, despite how she wants to be, she does represent those still sort of medieval rite of conquest approaches to life. Even in the present day, despite living 1,000 years, she still hasn't really changed. So it works. Again, the one thing I had a problem with is the names. Like, I'm so used to calling him Hudson, Goliath, Demona, Broadway, Lexington, Brooklyn, and technically they're not. Overall, though, still fun. I'd love to see. Issue 2 is already out, and I didn't read it yet. So, I'm good. Actually, you know what? I'm stopping this. Yeah. If you love this, I'll leave your thoughts in the comment section. What are you hoping to see in this Dark Age comic? What are you hoping the trial? What do you think the trial will be, or the hearing will be? I think by default Goliath will be given. The judge will say like he's got sentience, especially when the security guard, probably Dominic, will speak in Goliath's defense as to exactly what he did here. Will grab sentience. What do you think of Star Wars? What do you think the Star Wars comics are doing lately? Are they in a good spot? Are they in a bad spot? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'll catch you all later. This is Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.